Hi, welcome to this channel. Here we are going to discuss a hyperbolic function. Let me write the standard form of hyperbola. That is, f of x is equal to a over x minus p plus q. This is the standard form. This standard form is needed for grade 12. X is equal to p is the vertical asymptotes and y is equal to q is the horizontal asymptotes. So these are the equations of asymptotes. Do you know what you mean by asymptotes? It's a line where graph never touch, but graph is going closer and closer to this line, or the undefined condition on that graph. So x is equal to p and y is equal to q. These are the equations of asymptotes. It's a very important one. Yeah. Now we can see that basically there are two types of hyperbolas are there. Okay. So here, like parabola, here also that a is very important. If a is positive, that is a greater than 0, I will draw the first type of hyperbola. That is, whenever you draw hyperbola, first thing that you have to draw is the asymptotes. So let me start with the vertical asymptotes. That is, x is equal to p, a vertical line. Then horizontal asymptotes, that is, y is equal to q. It is like an axis, x-axis, y-axis. Here, asymptotes are important. The vertical one's equation is x is equal to p, and the horizontal one's equation is y is equal to q. And look at the point of intersection of these two asymptotes, that is this point. Its coordinates is always pq. X value of that point is p, and the y value of that point is q, always. Okay, now if a is positive, the hyperbola will look like this. Hyperbola is a broken graph. So first part is here in the first quadrant of asymptotes, and the next part is opposite to that, that is in the third quadrant, like this. If a is positive, then first part of hyperbola in the first quadrant of asymptotes, not the axis, asymptotes. Here quadrant I said about asymptotes, not the axis. Please note that point. So first part in the first quadrant and the next part in the third quadrant. This is how it looks. And that point is point of intersection of asymptotes is always PQ. And what will happen if A is negative? A less than 0. That's how we represent negative numbers. Okay. If that A, whatever number is there in the place of A is negative, then as the hyperbola will look like this. Vertical asymptotes, then horizontal asymptotes. So since it's a broken graph, first part will be in the second quadrant of asymptotes, and next part will be in the fourth quadrant of asymptote. This is how it's look. The graph never touch the asymptotes. Is it clear? Okay, now coming to axis of symmetry or a line of symmetry. That is the line which divide this graph into two equal parts, or the line that bisect this hyperbola into two equal parts. Like asymptotes, the hyperbola got two axes of symmetries. First one is the line with the positive gradient. It must pass through the point of intersection of asymptote. That is going to be like this. So you can see that the line is dividing the graph symmetrically. You can see that one. This line having the positive gradient, and equation of this line generally it is y is equal to x plus c. The line with the positive gradient. We can see that is increasing line. You can see that. And this line is passing through the point PQ. I told you. So we can substitute PQ here in the equation, and we can make the C available. You understand? So this is the general equation of axisymmetry with the positive gradient, right? Then I said that one more, two of them are there. The other one is like this. This is the one. See. Yeah, this is the one. It's also dividing the graph into equal parts. You can see that one. And equation of that line, this line is decreasing negative gradient. Y is equal to minus x plus c. This is the equation. In both cases, what you have to do is you have to make C available. How do you do it? Substitute the point, whatever is PQ there, and we can make C available. It's a very simple thing, and you can get mark also. Now coming to the domain and range. When it comes to domain, you know that all the x values of the graph, that is domain, isn't it? So look at the hyperbola. Since it's a broken graph, the graph is broken at, when you look at x values from left to right, we can see that when x is equal to p, there is no graph. That is why it is an asymptotes, I told you. So that p value is excluded, all the x values starting from minus infinity to plus infinity except p. So that is the domain. So that is a general one in all the hyperbola. That's how it is. So domain is x element starting from minus infinity to plus infinity, or we can write like this: x element of all the real numbers where x cannot be equal to p. So when you get a question, check that what is p, that you have to write it here. So this is the domain of hyperbola. Similarly, can you guess what is the range of hyperbola? All the y value, that is range, isn't it? All the y values of the graph. When you look at from top to bottom or bottom to top, we can see that the graph is broken at q. Y is equal to q asymptotes, isn't it? So the range is in all the hyperbola, y element, all the real numbers, is y is not equal to q. So that is the range of the graph. So these are the things generally about hyperbola. So axis of symmetry is there, domain and range, and how do you draw hyperbola? By looking at the sign of A. If A is positive, then one wing is there in the first quadrant, the other one is there in the third quadrant of asymptotes. If A is negative, then one is there in the first the second quadrant, the other one is in the fourth quadrant. That's how we can draw hyperbola. So these are the general things about hyperbola. Now let us do one question, then it will be more clear. Okay, now look at this example. Given g of x is equal to 6 over x plus 2 minus 1. You know, when you see a graph and equation like this, you need to know this is the equation of hyperbola. How do you know that? You know, the x value is there in the denominator. Any graph with the x is there in the denominator like this is the equation of hyperbola. Write down the equation of asymptotes of g. It's a very simple question, and this question normally carries 2 marks. How do you get it? Because I will show you that 1.1. You know that y is equal to a divided by x minus p plus q. This is the standard form. And the given equation is y, g of x is y, 6 over x plus 2 minus 1. Now compare these two. What is there in the place of p? You know, here don't write 2 there, because immediately after x in the standard form it is minus there. But when it comes to the question, x plus there. So don't think that x is equal to 2 is the vertical axis. Wrong. You have to take the negative value of 2, because I will show you here when I make this one same like a standard form, 6 divided by x minus 2. Do you see that one? So now we can see that it is same like a standard form, which means the x value, x is equal to minus 2 and y is equal to any number. If it is positive or negative number, no problem. Whatever is there after this fraction, take it. That is minus 1. So these are the equations of asymptotes. 2 marks question. Is it fine? Okay, now we can go to the next question. Question number 1.2. What is that? Calculate the x-intercept and y-intercept. Okay, so starting with the x-intercept, that is 1.2.1. X-intercept. Like all other graphs, x-intercept, how do you get? Make y is equal to 0 in the main equation. 0 is equal to 6 divided by x plus 2 minus 1. Now solve and find the value of x. First you have to send to minus 1 this side, the other side, that is 1 is equal to 6 divided by x plus 2. Now we can cross multiply x plus 2 to the left. So it's going to be 1 times x plus 2. That is x plus 2 itself is equal to 6. That is x is equal to 6 minus 2. Answer is going to be 4. That is 4 is the x-intercept. Now if you write it as coordinates form, then 4, 0 is the answer. Okay, I think it is better to write like this because it's a separate question to find x-intercept. Write it in the coordinates form. Now coming to next question, that is 1.2.2. What is that? Y-intercept. Y-intercept, how do you find? X is equal to 0 in the main equation, isn't it? So the main equation become y is equal to 6 divided by x going to be 0. That is 0 plus 2 minus 1. That is y is equal to 6 divided by 2 is 3 minus 1. So y value we got it, that is 2. So the coordinates of y-intercept is x0. That's how we started. Y value we got it 2. So it's also very easy question. Normally this carries 2 to 3 marks. Easily you can get it. Is it clear? Okay, now we can move to next question 1.3. So now we are going to sketch the graph and shows all the intercepts with the axis. So for sketching the graph we need x-intercept, y-intercept and equations of asymptotes. So I'm going to draw now. Let me draw the axis first because we are drawing this one on the axis, y-axis and the x-axis. Remember we are just drawing approximately, not accurately. So these are the axis, x-axis, y-axis. After that we are going to draw asymptotes. X is equal to minus 2. So go to minus 2 somewhere here, minus 2. Then x is equal to minus 2. That is the vertical asymptotes. Use the ruler you have to draw. And then horizontal asymptotes equation is y is equal to minus 1. Y-axis, where is minus 1? Down here, isn't it? Minus 1. Then it's going to be horizontal asymptotes. Let me draw the horizontal asymptotes. Y is equal to minus 1. Then the vertical asymptotes equation is x is equal to minus 2. You know the asymptotes normally we represent with the dotted lines. Sometimes axis can be asymptotes. So if axis is the asymptotes, you don't need to draw with the dotted lines. Okay. Yeah, now we are going to draw the graph. Let me plot x-intercept and y-intercept. What is the x-intercept? X-intercept is 4, 0. So it's going to be 4 somewhere here. 4, 0 is here. Then y-intercept, we got it, that is 0, 2. That is somewhere here. Now we already know that this graph, since a, what is a here? 6, isn't it? Is positive means the graph will come in the first and third quadrant of asymptotes. You understand? So you know that this is the first quadrant, this is the second quadrant, then this is going to be the third quadrant, and this is going to be the fourth quadrant. Is it clear? I'm talking about asymptotes. You understand? So this is how you have to think. Now we know that in the first quadrant and third quadrant, isn't it? But here in the first quadrant we can see the x-intercept and y-intercept. So when you draw it, you have to draw like this. So now I am going to draw the graph. You know that this graph will appear in the first quadrant and third quadrant, isn't it? You can see the intercepts are there in the first quadrant. So it has to go like this. Okay, it has to pass the x-intercepts, y-intercept at 2, then x-intercept at 4, then after that it will going closer and closer to the asymptotes. It never touch the asymptotes. Is it clear? Now other wing also you have to draw it. Where is that? That is in the third quadrant. That is here. Do you see that? So we are done. This is how we draw the graph. Now we can move to the next question. Okay, question number 1.4, we have to find the equation of line of symmetry or axis of symmetry with the negative gradient. We know that there are two axis of symmetries are there. One is with the positive gradient, other one is with the negative gradient. isn't it? So you are here finding the axis of symmetry with the negative gradient, isn't it? So how do we get it? The equation, let me write the equation. Y is equal to minus x plus c. This is the equation, and you have to make the value of c available. See, I will show you how this line appear on the graph, because that line has to pass through the point of intersection of asymptote, that is this point. And what is the coordinate of that point? X value is -2 and y value is -1, isn't it? And this line will go like this. You see that? So dividing the graph into equal parts. So just take that point and substitute and find the value of c. So the y value is -1 is equal to x value is -2. That is minus, already minus is there, then -2 plus c. So it's going to be -1 is equal to 2 plus c. That is c is equal to, send it to other side, that is -1 minus 2. Answer is -3. So the equation become y is equal to minus x minus 3. This is the answer. It's a very simple question. What you have to do, make the value of c available. How do you do it? Substitute pq in the equation. Sometimes they ask you to find the positive gradient, the one with the positive gradient. So instead of y is equal to minus x plus c, you have to write y is equal to x plus c. Then the steps are same like this one. Is it clear? Yeah, now we can move to next question, that is 1.5. Look at this question. Determine the values of x for which 6 over x plus 2 minus 1 greater than or equal to minus x minus 3. Do you understand this question? What is on the left hand side of inequality is the hyperbola. The right hand side of inequality is the axis of symmetry with the negative gradient. Both you can see there on the diagram, isn't it? So this question, let me write it like this. It's a very simple question. We have to read the answer from the graph. So the left hand side is g of x, right? That is hyperbola greater than or equal to minus x minus 3. How do you get the answer? What does this mean? That is hyperbola above the axis of symmetry. So look at the hyperbolic graph and find out the portion of hyperbola or part of hyperbola which is above the axis of symmetry. See, axis of symmetry I already drew there in the diagram. Did you see that? Axis of symmetry. That is this line, axis of symmetry, okay? And did you see the portion? We can see one portion up there, the other portion down there. I'm talking about hyperbola. So let me indicate the top portion of hyperbola, that is this one. See, all of you look at the diagram, see, like this. This portion of hyperbola is above that line of symmetry, isn't it? The other one is below. So here they want the x values of the one that I indicated here, that line, that graph, that curve's x value. So the x value is starting from -2, isn't it? It is not touching, but just after, see, these are the x values. See, I am just pointing out to see that these are the x values where this graph is, according to this condition, existing, isn't it? So starting from -2 is not part because it's an asymptote. Up until infinity is the answer. So how do you write the answer? All the x value starting from -2, but you remember, use open bracket. Up until infinity is the answer, isn't it? It is going towards the right. So don't consider the other part of hyperbola. Why? That is below, that is less than. Here we want greater. Is it clear now? So that's it. That's how we do this question. Okay, so then I think all of you enjoyed this question, hyperbola. Normally it's a very simple question. If you get it, you can get the total mark. Okay, in my next video, you will see exponential and logarithmic graph. Okay, so I will take exponential, one video for exponential and one video for logarithmic.
Is nowhere to be seen. Why am I lost in a loveless fantasy when somebody real is waiting out there for me? Why am I looking at you? I've enjoyed the years I've wasted, but the time has come to face the fact